Hi, good evening. Welcome to Monday, October 18th, regular school board meeting. If we could rise for a moment of silence, followed by the pledge. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. Board member, superintendent, I know we have some changes to the agenda.
We do have a change to the agenda. We're going to have to pull the discussion item, that's 11.01, that's the student progression plan. This was to be the final hearing on that. There was a change that was discussed at the last board workshop that did not make it into this document, so we're going to pull it. We'll re-advertise and ensure that the correct document is online for the next meeting, after the public hearing has been, advertised, the waiting period, I think it's 30 days? 28 days. So you'll see it again in 28 days.
All right, thank you.
May I ask one question?
Yes.
Don't ask a question?
No, do.
I have a question too. Yes.
Since we're into the school year, and this is the 18-19 progression plan, are students technically under the old progression plan right now? And then it changes? Not that it's a big deal, but.
Yeah, and we actually are, most of these items, if you looked at the summary that we talked about at the board workshop, we're already living by most of those. Those were some programmatic changes and some policy changes that we've advertised. We just know that a lot of this was just best practices that we were getting into play. So a lot of it, like the acceleration, the remediation acceleration block, all those pieces that we've highlighted in the plan are already in place. So while technically, I guess we're under the approved plan of 17-18, a lot of these were other policy changes that have already been approved.
Thank you.
We're living by. So it was just the one, what we're missing is, if you'll recall the conversation about accelerated reader may not be used as a grade. And we specifically defined that in language, and somewhere in this document it did not get made. So we need to go back and make that change and bring it back to you. But we've already advertised. I mean, we had the conversations with leaders. They know that that is something that is going to be in this document, and we are ensuring that that's not happening.
Don't we have to have there be a first hearing and then 28 days later, a second hearing?
We had the first hearing. That's why it would have been ready to do tonight. It was just that the language from the amendment after the first hearing didn't get included in the public notice. Once we put that language in the public notice, you've already had the hearing where you discussed that and inserted that as the first reading.
Any other changes or amendments to the agenda?
How about 9.04? Can we talk about that one a little bit? That's the team evaluation plan.
Okay. Yeah, I'll talk about that one. Okay, 9.04 is pulled for discussion. Any others? All right, great. Approval of the minutes, superintendent.
All right, I recommend approval of the minutes from the regular school board meeting September 10th, 2018, and the regular school board meeting September 24th, 2018.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation. Thank you.
Second.
We'll give it to Dr. Burns. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. All right, we are on a representation. Our district spotlight tonight is going to feature Lost Lake Elementary School's Rock Your School event, and we also are going to feature Eustis Heights Elementary School Be the Wild Card event. And Sherry, we know you've been out in these buildings doing these videos, and we appreciate this so much. It's really a refreshing look.
Lake County School District is a place where our students are always learning and growing into the leaders of tomorrow. Lost Lake and Eustis Heights Elementary Schools take the spotlight this week with a creative approach to learning. September 20th was a nationwide Rock Your School initiative started by 2 teachers at Ron Clark Academy in Atlanta, Georgia. Teachers at both Lost Lake and Eustis Heights participated by transforming their classrooms into detailed themes to give students a unique and unforgettable learning experience.
Rock Your School is an opportunity for teachers to think different about how instructional lessons are delivered to students. It may include a room transformation. Some of our teachers went all out, transformed classrooms to really make it exciting for the kids while keeping it very content heavy and rigorous.
Student engagement has always been a huge passion of mine, and helping kids fall in love with reading, both aspects of reading, literary and informational, has always been a drive that I've had. How can I get them engaged in something where a lot of kids come to third grade with a mentality already that they don't like reading and they don't think reading is interesting or fun. By the time they're 8, they pretty much have their mind up about how they feel about reading class. And I like to challenge their thinking and create an environment where they like coming to my class. So text structure, I felt like fit perfectly with that. I didn't change my lesson plan. I didn't change the standard for this. I was already teaching this on this day. I already had it planned. But I thought that since we do text structure, the kids are really dissecting the text, and we really look at individual pieces. We look at individual paragraphs, and I thought it'd be perfect for surgery because we're taking a closer look at the patient or the text.
My favorite part is just seeing the kids' reactions. I just want them to enjoy learning. I think over time, kids, they get with the thought of testing and making sure that their grades are always, A's or B's. They lose that fun, and I wanted to find a way to bring it back. So my favorite part about it is just having them enjoy learning again.
At Lost Lake Elementary School, the movement was 100% teacher-driven. I could not be more proud of that. I think giving students authentic experiences that they truly enjoy is exciting to see, and seeing the teachers passionate about their practice just warms your heart.
This year, one of the book studies that we're doing on is The Wild Card, and this is from Hope and Wade King, and this is an initiative, Rock Your School, that Hope King put out there as a nationwide challenge to celebrate student engagement and the building of relationships with your students. Like you saw many times today when we were walking into our classrooms, some teachers are transforming the rooms, some teachers have stages in their rooms. They're really just focusing on celebrating the students that are in the room and how different each one of them are. The wild card really kind of goes into the fact that students cannot control what hand they are dealt in life. And it's our job as a teacher to be a wild card and to make sure that we're a wild card for our students with building relationships and making sure that we are being as creative as we can to engage them every day and get them just as excited about learning as we are.
Lake County Schools is the destination district for providing students with individual opportunities to excel. Stay tuned for the next District Spotlight, where we will continue shining a light on what makes Lake great.
That's awesome. Very good.
Very nice.
Yeah. You had a good time in those classrooms too, I'm sure, Sherry. So text feature surgery was something I got to see some students do this summer. It's super fun for kids, so lots of good stuff.
I actually went into a classroom and they all had on surgical masks, and I walked in the door and I stopped and I thought, I'm not sure I want to come in here. And they're like, oh, no, we're just dissecting they were dissecting fractions. So, okay. It was safe. They're all well.
At this time, we have our public input. We have one card from Dr. Tibbetts, and while he's making his way forward, board members, I'm going to let you know that he is wishing to address several items you'll hear him speak about. And if there's any, after hearing Dr. Tibbetts speak, if there's any items that you wish to pull, we can go ahead and pull them. I know we're past that section, but I wanted to give you the opportunity. So, Dr. Tibbetts.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Board members, just want to quickly say, I have 180 seconds, and there's over 360 pages worth of material to come, and that's less than half a second a page, so I have to really talk fast this evening. First item I want to address is 9.03, 103 pages talking about the LEADS plan and how we determine and evaluate administrators. One of the interesting things in there, and I'll be honest, I have not read 103 of the pages, but I did pick up immediately that we rate them on how their students' grades are. With, from what I can see, no differentiation of socioeconomic and abilities of students from one school to the other. Just, they're all graded the same. Next was 9.04, which you've pulled regarding the team plan. I looked at that and I said, I'm glad I'm not a teacher trying to figure out how I'm evaluated. I got about 40 pages of state statutes. Then I got Marzano's protocols. Then I got learning sciences performance standards. I don't know how the hell a teacher can sort out what you are doing to evaluate them, but it certainly needs to be addressed and shouldn't be consented to. The contract with Collier County, while I understand how difficult it is to find the psychologists that we need in our schools, I really have to wonder about the vendors that are part of the contract from Westchester, Pennsylvania, Huntsville, North Carolina, and Kennesaw, Georgia. It's almost like have degree, will travel. We don't have anybody closer that can help us. 10.04, another one of the consultants coming in under our Title I and Title II monies. I figured it out, they're getting paid $334 an hour. That's not counting flying them in and out. And they're coming here 5 times, or 4 times, I'm not sure. But it seems to me we could join some of the groups, do it in half the time and half the money. 10.08, 9 students from Leesburg High are going to the National FFA conference, which is terrific. But do they really need 4 chaperones and 2 teachers? We've almost got as many adults going as we do students. Some questions and concerns regarding the student progress plan, even though it's been pulled. Maybe you can think about this in the time. What is an intensive acceleration classroom? I hope you all know that and can define it as you're discussing that document. I have a concern about redos. You take a test, you fail it. We sit you down, we go over the questions, we tell you the answers, we tell you the answers, we go over the questions, then we ask you, let's take the test again. Have they mastered that material or memorized the answers in the redo? The educational choice on page 11 talks about bullying. Please put in place a protocol to determine whether or not it really happened. Finally, one last quick item on the physical education. I was a physical education professional, and I find it appalling that 150 minutes a week are spent on physical education, and tacked on top of that are 100 minutes for recess, none of which anywhere in any of your documents count in terms of evaluating whether our schools are doing the jobs they're supposed to do. And I know the state says you've got to do it, but as a board, you have an obligation to speak up to the state saying, this is absurd, absolutely absurd. You tell us what we've got to do in all these subject areas, and then you take 250 minutes a week away from us to do it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Tibbetts. Board members, anything to pull? Okay. All right. So we are on our reports, and I believe we had Audra from the Educational Foundation up. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much. I'm filling in for Carmen as she is sick and could not make it tonight. So our report goes as follows, that the Apple Mart program has seen a significant attendance at our stores where teachers shop for free, and we welcome 227 teachers since August and distributed $17,000 worth of school supplies. CTE programs provide high school students the chance to get a head start on preparing for college and careers after high school. The foundation was recently able to award 9 career and technical grants totaling $38,000. These 9 programs are Family and Consumer Science at Carver and Oak Park Middle, Television Production at Eustis High, Culinary Arts at Mount Dora High, digital design at Mount Dora High, culinary arts at South Lake High School, geographic information systems at South Lake High, automotive maintenance at South Lake High, agricultural technology at South Lake High, and agri-science at Umatilla Middle. At the Foundation's last board meeting on September 26th, the Educational Foundation of Lake County's board approved 12 teacher funding request grants. These funds can be used for specific needs of teachers, students, and classrooms. Our current programmatic funding priorities include CTE opportunities, increasing graduation rates, and increasing literacy and STEM initiatives. The 12 approved requests were STEM challenges at Astatula Elementary, Florida DPQ binder at Astatula Elementary, promoting literacy at Astatula Elementary, cropping numbers at Claremont Middle, growing vegetables, growing students at Grassy Lake Elementary, building classroom libraries at Grassy Lake Elementary, classroom books at Groveland Elementary, Wonder Book, the classroom library at Mascot Charter, taking care of our planet at Mineola Charter, free choice reading at Oak Park Middle, Google for Classrooms at Sorrento Elementary, and the Manatee Steel Band at Triangle Elementary. Our first year-round internal employee giving campaign has kicked off, and we have 153 employees committed to our cause, totaling to almost $10,000 in donations. The foundation would like to thank all Lake County school employees for going above and beyond their everyday duties for their commitment to Lake County schools. Our annual Scott Strong Memorial Golf Tournament we will head this Friday on October 12th, 2018. The tournament was started by the late school board member Scott Strong in 2004. We are completely sold out at 32 teams. And of course, Our Lady of the Lakes Renaissance Fair is less than a month away from opening day on November 2nd. Mark your calendars for Education Day. We currently have 1,800 students signed up for Education Day and are expecting many more. The full dates, times, and tickets can be found at the Lady of the Lakes Renaissance Fair website at lakerenfair.com. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Audra, very much. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, I don't have anything to report other than I'll be gone beginning sometime Friday for 2 weeks
How come?
because I'll be getting married Saturday.
Congratulations, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
That's why I asked, and full disclosure, everybody.
I have my first 2-week vacation I've ever had. While I'm gone, Elizabeth will be around and available to answer any questions. And like it said in the representation, she can have authentic experiences that she truly enjoys while I'm gone. So I'll see y'all in about 2 weeks.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Enjoy very much. All right, we are on our consent agenda. Superintendent.
All right, I recommend approval of tonight's consent agenda items 8.01 to 9.03 and 10.01 to 10.14.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, wow, okay. So we'll give Mr. Dodd the motion and Mr. Gamble the second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. And we are on 9.04. I believe, Mr. Dodd, if you want to kick us off.
Sure, yes. Well, I guess I'll preface this with, I think we've come a long way in the last number of years in this team evaluation system. Many highlights along the way. That being said, I know it's difficult and challenging to work in a system that is inherently bad from the state, right? So we kind of do the best we can. I had a conversation today with Mr. Zamora about some of the teachers and how they're assigned, some of the assessments and so forth, and I gotten some information from him about that process and how, where is he? Is he hiding? Ah, there he is. And so I thought perhaps there was some information that you'd be willing to share with the board on that process, and maybe we might be able to put some things out in the public of things to take back to the team committee that they might be able to review in the subsequent steps. Would that be appropriate?
Sure. Mr. Zamora, you want to come up?
Well, thank you for having me up here. I guess my question to you will be exactly which part would you like me to address?
Oh, all right.
The plan is pretty big.
It is. I think, okay, so one of the things that that had me most intrigued was the tables, I think, on pages 8 through, I don't know how, well, start on page 8, where we talk about which assessments are assigned to which particular teachers. And so there are a couple of ideas that I had that maybe might worth some discussion among the team group.
Okay, all assessments, at least those tables refer to the student performance measures, the piece of the evaluation that's only 35% of the overall final result for them. So those tables are set because they dictate what data we use to calculate a teacher's student performance measure rating. So we go by position assignment, then by roster assignment, and it tells me what data I will be pulling if there's data available for that student assessment data available for that student. The following tables, then the tables are broken by elementary, middle, and high, and then in the following, before those tables actually, it talks about how I go about calculating the ratings, whether it's a Z-score, whether they are set scales for passing and getting a passing point for a student meeting a certain growth for the year, so on and so forth.
And my understanding of this process is that, that we need to have a plan that you all can submit to the state by the end of the month, and then throughout the year, you all can still
Correct.
continue to make some changes to this.
The state approves the plan for a period of, when they get a plan in place, by every district, they approve the plan for a period of 5 years. They only require changes when substantial changes, if I'm changing the way I calculate student scores for a particular group of teachers. Or we're, like, for instance, last year, we proposed not using BAM following state statute and putting up a new formula. When there are substantial, large changes like that, they require a plan. Other than that, if it's just there are no changes pending at this time, it's just a rollover plan. Basically, we just change the year and we continue with that plan until we submit changes to state for approval.
So I felt like there were a couple that had my interest, and before I told him to kind of go on a wild goose chase, I didn't feel compelled that I really have the direction as an individual board member that I thought maybe perhaps we as a board, I mean, if you think what I've got is outlandish, then I guess I don't want to send the team committee on this endeavor to discuss something that doesn't even have the support of the board. But when I was looking at the chart there, I noticed that at the elementary level, and particularly the elective teachers, there are some elective teachers that teach a science component, whether it's one of the STEAM labs that we've put in or whether it's a science lab or a tech lab, but none of those teachers are assigned the state science assessment. All of their rating is going to come back from the ELA and math. So it almost stands to reason for me that if you would teach one of those science type components or one of those STEM type components, that the science assessment would be tied back to you, as it is for 4th and 5th grade teachers, which interestingly, the 4th grade teachers, they don't, their students may not have even taught any of those students who end up taking that assessment, right? I mean, it's my first year in 4th grade, for example, and I haven't taught any of those students, but their science score is going to get tied back to me. That seems a little strange.
Does 4th grade get science scores? It's just 5th grade that gets
Just
science
5th
scores. I
grade.
know it says 4th or 5th, but just 5th gets science
Just
scores?
5th grade gets science. Just 5th grade. And it goes by roster. So if a teacher teaches science, they will get their FCAT science as part of their student performance measures, along with ELA and math, if they have rosters assigned to them for teaching language arts and reading. In most cases, they have a mixture. They have social studies science, or they might have a reading roster, or they may not. Usually when you have, when I was speaking to Mr. Dodds earlier, when you have a science lab per se at a school, an elementary school, they not only see 5th grade, they all see every single grade. So therefore, they're considered an elective area, which tends to assign all data to those teachers. The only pockets that you might have 1 or 2 there that are unique are when you have a departmentalized grade level, in which in 4th grade there's no FCAT science, and that particular teacher is teaching only science. There is no other roster assigned to her, so we default to an ELA math score for that science teacher.
So let me get clarification here. The line here says 4th and 5th grade as the area of responsibility. It has 2 bullets, FSA, ELA, and math, and FCAT science.
Correct.
So pretend I'm a 4th grade teacher in that scenario. if it's my first year teaching fourth grade, and I haven't taught any of those students in the past, so when they go take the fifth grade science assessment, none of their scores are going to get tied back to me? Or will they?
No, they don't get tied.
Only if I've taught those kids. So if I taught those kids at some point, then when they go take the fifth
They
grade.
only, no, when they take the fifth grade, the teacher that has the responsibility for the fifth grade gets those scores tied into her.
Does the
Maybe
fourth
I'm
grade
not
teacher ever
following.
get them?
Fourth grade doesn't get anything
Those-
related to science.
To science.
Okay,
they
but
do not.
well, that's what's on the plan put forth in front of us tonight. It says fourth and fifth grade have FCAT science tied to them. So that's where I'm trying to understand where the science happens.
The reason we have the table with bullets for FSA, ELA, and math and FCAT science is because we have fourth and fifth grade in the same box.
Right.
So a fourth grade teacher would only have a ELA and math. A fifth grade teacher will have ELA, math, and or science if they have a roster for science.
So perhaps maybe the confusion would be.
Maybe splitting the box,
Yes.
fourth and fifth grade.
Yes, because fourth and fifth have different sets of criteria.
It goes by assigned students. So the table dictates student group assigned students. That's why rosters come into play. So
Okay.
if they don't have a roster with science, they won't get science. If they don't have a roster for ELA, they don't get ELA. They only get assigned whatever roster they have.
That's why it made zero sense to me to assign science to these fourth graders,
now I
but
understand.
they're in the same block. So I thought that it was being assigned to them. Okay, well, that makes more sense. So perhaps maybe we revise that table to show.
Split the grade.
That's right.
And I don't necessarily disagree. I don't know if now is the time to add the STEAM lab, but let's just take Umatilla Elementary School. We have an amazing new STEAM lab and a new teacher that's there. And if he is seeing kindergarten through fifth grade, that it would be suspect to say that you would see an improvement in their fifth grade science scores, because now we're sure that science is getting taught. It's across the grade levels. It's not being left out. So we would see that improvement. And wouldn't he like some of that improvement to be, looked back towards him? I know we do reading in the content areas as well, so I could see that as well. And we do math and science. I get it that it all goes together, but it might be a consideration for that specials area teacher that he gets, or she, depending on the school, gets some of that reward.
And that is a good,
Yeah.
like I discussed with Mr. Laws, and I agree with you, that's the concern that I've made a note that I will bring to the team committee.
Yeah.
And I'll bring data over for them to look at and make a decision on whether to go ahead and include FCAT science for those teachers.
Yeah, along those lines, I mean, it seems to stand to reason that, okay, if I'm teaching K-5, I can't have 100% of my score necessarily come from this fifth grade one assessment. So perhaps it's just a piece of that overall student performance measurement, and maybe it could be weighted appropriately. The other question I've got at the elementary level is about the instructional coaches. And I don't know how many of them are out there for subjects that are not necessarily literacy coaching, but I know there's a good number of math coaches out there. I know there's at least one science coach. I don't know if there are more than that. But would it make sense then to assign the student scores for the subjects in which they're coaching? So if I'm the math coach, I've got ELA in math as well as the iReady ELA in math being assigned to me. But should ELA carry as much weight if I'm the math coach?
Our math tests require a lot of reading.
Sure, but should they be weighted equally? I would think maybe you'd weight the math piece more. Or if I'm the science coach, that's the one thing I'm actually not being evaluated on at all. I'm being evaluated on ELA and math, and science is not part of the evaluation.
I would say, again, that is something that I will collect the data,
Yeah.
bring it to the team committee. First of all, I need to find who the coaches are in all our elementary schools, for instance. And then once I know who they are, pull the data and see how it pans out when I start looking at ELA for ELA coaches, math for math coaches, science for science coaches. It becomes difficult for science because, again, they only have FCAT science fifth grade. So
Sure, but in middle school, we assign FCAT science to the 8th grade for the instructional coaches in middle school, but in elementary, 5th grade science is not assigned. So it's inconsistent.
correct.
So-
And it's been a carryover for many years. So
Yeah.
I will look to see where the change happens.
So I guess those are just a couple of things I'm kind of lobbing up to say.
And I will bring them to the team committee.
Feedback. All right.
Did you say, so you're going to run those numbers?
Correct.
Because I'm just thinking mathematically, the more pieces you add, the more statistical, you're just going to hit their mean every time. Be interesting to me to see.
It all depends because every assessment data point gets calculated differently. And then gets
Weighted differently or calculated?
calculated differently and weighted differently based on amount of students.
Because there is a growth component. That was the question I talked to the team about, and that I didn't see a growth component in there. I saw proficiency scores, and that gave me a concern because we're not using VAM anymore, but there is a growth component.
There is on the ELA and math portion, what replaced VAM, the growth component came to the level 1s and 2s. So for instance, if a teacher had got a level 3, 4, or 5 on a student, they got a credit for that student. The growth component came if you have a student that was a level 1 last year, and they were again a level 1 this year, we checked for growth, meaning the level 1 is broken into subcategories, low, medium, middle, and high. So if the kid scored level 1 middle, and next year they scored a level 1 high, there was growth attained with that student, similar to how school grading gives credit for a school for grade purposes. They look to see if there's growth within that child from one level to the other or within the level.
That's just using the FSA assessments?
FSA, ELA, and math, correct.
What do we do for K2?
K and 2 was
K3,
3.
growth.
3 was not there's nothing to compare.
Right, so what do we do for K3 for
We
growth?
do a proficiency, basically. It's a partial proficiency for level 2, complete, passing 3, 4, and 5.
So if I'm a literacy coach, as I don't see that position specifically named, does that class become classified as an instructional coach?
Repeat your question again, I'm sorry?
So let's pretend I'm a literacy coach. I don't see that position specifically mentioned in the table. So would I be classified as an instructional coach, as a literacy coach?
It's considered like under guidance counselors and all other non-classroom instructional staff. I look at their plan and see what position they have. So if they have a non-classroom plan, meaning their instructional support, I consider them a coach.
Okay, so if I'm a literacy coach, then math, is that assigned to me? It looks like it is,
Instructional coaches, media, yes,
because I'm
correct.
teaching kids strategies that should help them fare better
Correct.
in math.
And
Okay.
I can see with the deletion of the CRT position in some buildings, that literacy coach has taken on quite a load at this point in time.
In a lot of the buildings, they work as a team, so they work together when it comes to addressing all the needs of their staff at that school. So it makes sense. It might not make in some schools, but in some cases, they work together as a leadership team.
I'd be interested in seeing the data, because I know you have the numbers that you can run some of these to see. It'd be interesting to see if they
I'll get all that together.
help. I'm so glad it's you standing there.
Still have the system of like a physical education coach is going to be graded on.
Elective area, all the students in middle and high school based on rosters, in elementary, all the students in the school because they see everybody.
The only other way to do that is if we gave them all a test.
If they had a test, we don't have an assessment per se for physical education.
The kids, yeah.
Now,
Is your mic on, Dr. Burns?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Now, in some elective areas, particularly, let's say when you start getting to middle or high school and when there's an industry certification associated with that, could that become part of the?
That could become part of it. In years past, that data has been brought forward, and the committee has voted not to use industry certification because they're adult created. The language of the test is at the adult level, and in some cases, it's not beneficial, positive. It doesn't show positive correlation for the teachers. So that has been a committee decision. It has. I bring it every year.
The teachers or the team committee is
The team
choosing
committee.
not to use
They vote. They
the
vote.
results from the industry certification because the results are poor.
In some cases, yes, they were.
Okay.
But an AP teacher, their students are taking a college level exam, right? I mean, is that not the equivalent of taking a test that's written for adults?
Correct, but AP is also, the passing calculation for an AP, we're taking non-passing scores, which are level 2s,
Right.
as considered passing.
Yeah.
So
So obviously, you'd have to kind of dive into that and norm the results for purposes of Lake County.
Correct.
And what is, right. I know that's more steps and more work, but I guess if I'm imagining myself as a teacher in one of those positions, I'd be like, the one measurement that I'm actually preparing these students to take is the one that's not even counting.
And that is something that I can bring forward again to the team committee, bring CTE results, and see what type of calculation can be done that will be fair and representation of
Yes, I'm just trying to think about where we are in trying to promote college and career readiness, that college acceleration piece, in the high school formula, the high school acceleration piece in the middle school. It seems like it should be counted somewhere. Maybe not, it doesn't have a lot of weight, but maybe a little bit of weight, right?
Well, I find it a little odd that whoever the team committee is made up of, let's say, is like, well, these scores are bad, so we're just not going to use them for the evaluation. We're going to use something completely unrelated for the evaluation. Like, if I'm teaching an industry certification class and my industry certification numbers are not so good, that's my fault. I shouldn't be able to go, I'm going to take the English numbers. I'm going to take those numbers instead. That's a weird choice. That's just very strange to me.
Is there a certification person on the team committee? Is there somebody that's in?
We had one, but we don't have one right now. But I can invite somebody to be part of the meeting when I bring the data over to get input on. But the committee is formed by 9 district personnel and 9 members that are instructional personnel, including the union. It's co-chaired by the chief of staff, and co-chaired by Mr. Stewart, the union LCA president.
I mean, I get why it'd be favorable to me, if I'm teaching that industry certification, but I don't think it's necessarily ethical.
And I understand. We bring the data forward, and the committee votes, and a decision is made. I can bring the numbers, but it's not something that I can just tell you, okay, this is what we're going to do.
Well, I mean, if there's a sense of apprehension, then maybe you don't weight it 100%, right? Because even our AP teachers don't feel that burden because
Correct.
Nobody really teaches all 6 sections of AP, right? So they've got other things that factor in there. So perhaps they continue to have other components factored in, and then this is just a piece, particularly as you have to evaluate, maybe 30% passing this exam is the norm, right? And so we're not going to expect a teacher to walk out with 75% passing. That we'd have to figure out what's an acceptable threshold for making them highly effective or effective, right?
Definitely have to be different thresholds per test.
Not everybody takes this certification test, correct? This is just a handful of students. It's not a requirement in every class to take a certification test.
Those details, I'm not sure. I have to get with that department to make sure, because I know since last
That's true.
time.
Not all students take them. Our goal is that every student who's sitting in a course will take the exam. That is something that we're expecting and really working towards, yeah. But there is no requirement currently that they sit for the exam.
But we've also been pretty liberal with allowing kids to push themselves.
Yeah.
Which, in that case, then you hurt that teacher.
Right.
So where is that balance? And I think Mark hit on it, that you maybe don't count it 100%, that you give some point. But I tend to agree with Christy. It's a bit odd to me that we don't count it all because they're not doing well. I mean, that just screams, if that's what we're doing.
I don't think that's why, though. I think it's more to do with we choose who takes it, or not all the students take it. And we know statistically, when you get into 8 students or less, that it can have pretty big impact on your scoring. If they all do bad or they all do well, it can really skew your data pretty well. So I don't know if everybody's going to be taking it, and we don't want to hurt,
Certainly
And in
that's
some
what
cases, you may have one teacher with a roster of students in a class, and those students are taking 3 different tests within that roster. So depending on how one does in one test and the other one does, when you weigh in their score and come up with a rating, it affects them.
Yeah.
So it can affect them. So like I said, I don't have those numbers in front of me to be able to tell you what CTE impact would be, but it's something that I would need to check.
The one complaint I consistently hear is from teachers, I'm being tested, which I think is completely fair. I'm being graded on kids I don't even touch. But then we have situations like the CTE thing where there is something that we could evaluate them on, and then they're choosing not to have that. So I don't know. I think striking a balance makes sense too. And definitely some sort of rating system, like we wouldn't expect our AP scores to all be, 5s.
Oh, I will make sure to bring that to the team committee.
Thank you.
With the questions that are coming up, are we comfortable voting for this?
I think we find ourselves again in October for a teacher evaluation system that's supposed to be, is everybody using their microphone? You guys got to sit up and we're getting, okay.
I don't know why.
I'm not saying that we should, but I think if we don't vote for it tonight and we're looking for change, when is your team committee meeting again?
I have to schedule one. We just finalized all results for evaluation, so that was uploaded to the state for reporting purposes as required by DOE. In the next couple of weeks, I'll be looking at trying to schedule a team committee and then I have to do the analysis of all the data first to make sure that I'm ready to be able to present it
Right.
Present it to who?
to the committee.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to crunch numbers and show what would happen if we did these sorts of things, right?
That we're getting ready to vote on.
Yeah.
Yes, so
And
a
then
little
I'll-
bit about the process, if I could. This is a 5-year plan. It's already been approved by the state and it's been approved by the boards. It's coming back as just an annual notification. In the document right now, I don't know if there's any changes because the team committee hasn't met. He's just now been able to get all of the data from last year's system in place so that they can look at how it now applies and come back to the team committee to see if there are any changes that they want to make. So we can amend this at any point in time. Over the past year, it was brought to you, I think, 3 different times with amendments as the team committee would meet. They would have conversation about the very things that you're talking about. This is trying to take a very inequitable system that was created by the state of Florida and try to make it equal for teachers, and it's just not. You talk about trying to find the balance. We have been searching to try and find the balance, and I can tell you it just doesn't exist because it is not a fair evaluation system. But this template and everything in the leads and the team, as Dr. Tibbetts mentioned earlier, it's a long document. It's a template that we're provided, and we're filling in the blanks in a system that is not equitable, and that we have taken a position that we're going to make it as favorable as we can for our teachers because we think that we are trying to create fairness in an unfair system, and I just don't think that, and this is something that every district struggles with because of the way that the accountability system was defined by the state of Florida. And a lot of this, like what's connected to teachers, is all defined in statute. It tells you what they'll be evaluated on. If you teach this, then you must attach this to as part of your evaluation score. So I think you brought up a lot of very good comments that has to go back now to this committee to look at, and then whatever amendments the team proposes will come back to you for amendments along the way. But at this point, we're up against a deadline by the state that we have to submit the document if there's going to be any changes to the document, which we really can't make now until the team committee's met. So
So when you bring it back, as she stated, last year we did some changes and amendments. Each time we do that, then you refile that with the state?
Yes, I refiled that with the state to get state approval.
Okay.
So we don't have to file, though, with the state this year because we're not making any significant changes. Is
No,
that correct?
I'm just submitting a required document for them to have one on file of what's the evaluation plan for this year, which is just the year change, 2018-19, from 17-18. We have not done any changes to the plan. It's just a matter of until new changes are in effect and approved by the committee and approved by the board, then I can submit a different one to the
Because
state.
one of the questions I asked in our meeting and was, it was that, it suggested that maybe we would have a meeting, was we created, or you created, a new evaluation system last year. Essentially, like, we got rid of VAM and created a new system, although VAM is the evaluation is based on 3 years, so I assume VAM is still in there this year?
VAM is not. We opted not
gone?
to use VAM.
Okay, so
Correct.
we went back and recalculated like 2 years ago data?
No, because we went this year with a formula that actually matched students. So it was not a
So it's a 1-year formula now?
one-year formula right now.
Okay, so, I didn't know that. So my question was, how does it look? Like, because we created this new formula and we haven't seen how the sim numbers have come, like, you simmed it last year and said it should look like this, and then this year you said you just got the data back, so we don't necessarily know what it looks like yet.
I can tell you, VAM reported only 14% of our teachers highly effective. The formula that I implemented in Lake that was approved by the team committee put everybody at about over 50% highly effective. So it was very beneficial and very rewarding to teachers. So same thing.
Students?
Well, it's a reflection of the students' performance. So when you look at the formula, it's an indication of how the teacher's work is rewarded in their evaluation. As for the overall evaluations, it has, over the last 3-year trend, it has gone up every year. It started at 20. Back in 15, 16, 20% of the final results were highly effective. 16, 17 was only about 30-something percent, 35%, I want to say, rounding. This year is at 49% reported. The state average is 50 of highly effective per county. Like, that's the state average. So we're at the state average as a district. We're meeting state average. So
And that data right there shows you how wacky it was when we had this conversation 3 years ago. That's a true testament to this process and showing how far it's come and evolved by trying to get it more right. But I agree, it'll never be perfect.
Better than, yeah, it's better, definitely, it sounds like
Better.
it's definitely better than it was.
yes, it's a lot better, but there's always room for improvement.
So just back to Christie's point, because I'm trying to process this a little bit now, that you made changes based on recommendations last year. Right? And the plan that's here is the one from last year.
The one from last year, which happened to be a good plan. There's still room for improvement, but it was a good plan.
I think the big highlight from last year was the reduction in the
Correct.
observation indicators, right? Where teachers could focus on things that are really going to matter and make the biggest difference.
If I look at just the instructional practice score, which was a reduction of elements, that went up 15% from the prior year. So, meaning 15% from effective moved up to highly effective.
How did deliberate practice?
That always performs between 80 and 90% are highly effective. That stays constant, hasn't changed.
That's why this conversation is really tricky for me. Like, I find it very interesting, but then at the end of the day, what's the purpose of this? What's the purpose of this? All this requirement, all of these things. We know we don't have teachers in classrooms. We know we need good teachers. We know we want our teachers to be rewarded for the work they do every day. So then let's look at the numbers and figure out what we need to do to adjust them. And then it just, then it goes back to the evaluation component of it. And how are those numbers? That's subjective in nature. Like, this whole thing, I get into it and then I'm like, okay, this is stupid. I'm back at it. Like, it's in and out and in and out, you know? So it's, I'm glad to hear that the numbers are more favorable for teachers and showing that our teachers are effective and highly effective. I like the inclusion of the science. It's worth a discussion about the industry certification. There's unintended consequences with every suggestion that we make. And that's why I think it's really important to do the numbers before we make any changes. So I guess my question to you is, and that's what I was trying to figure out, is do we need to vote on this tonight for you to be able to upload to the state knowing that you'll run the numbers and bring changes back in an amended form? Or can we table this conversation until the numbers are run? We don't want you not to miss a deadline.
I still have to submit a plan to the state to have one on file.
Right.
Our state plan was approved, so we have an approved plan. I was just bringing.
This is the approved plan,
This is the approved plan.
and it would,
I'm not submitting any substantial changes as required by state. I'm just submitting a plan on file.
okay.
So are we going to submit changes? Most likely, as soon as I meet with the team committee. If any changes are voted on, those are the ones that I will, again, bring to the board.
This is the craziest conversation.
I know, it's so-
ever. If we had a plan in place and we know we have work to do, and you are gathering the data to then make improvements,
Correct?
why would I, on this planet, vote for something that I know that you're going to change?
Right.
I don't know that for a fact.
We might not change it. So what he's saying is he's going to go back to the team committee. I know, Mr. Cloud, I have looked at you once, but you were looking the other direction. But I know there's members of the committee in this room. There's other committees. So they're all going to provide their input into this, and they may decide because of this industry certification conversation, they're not going to add that. And this is a brand new year with STEM or STEAM. We don't know what that's going to look like, so they're not going to add that, and there won't be any changes. So I think that it would be appropriate to table it if we're allowed to do that, so that these conversations can be had, and then you can bring any prospective changes, or you can just stand right there and say, there's no changes to the document, and then you can tell us why in a workshop. Can we do that?
Which one?
To table it, so we don't have to vote on not
It
changes?
hasn't come to the floor of the motion.
Well, I know it hasn't yet, but it can. I'm just asking him if we have to vote on it because of time strains.
The vote is only, that's the current plan in place. It's not, the plan is approved. I have to submit a plan to the state.
So you're going to.
So you're going to submit this plan
Plan.
regardless of what happens tonight?
Yeah.
And then we can bring back the amendments at a
Correct.
later
If
date?
we have
after the
changes, then
team?
I'll bring the amendments.
If he's going to submit it anyway, then why is it even here?
I don't even know.
I need, every year, the board has to look at the plan and
The
approve it.
plan, we always.
No,
approve
but
it
when
every
we
year.
look at this, we're actually approving it because we're voting for it.
Well, you approved it last year. So it's just reapproving the plan, the current plan, until new changes are brought forward.
And the state,
There were enough questions asked that seems like would have begun to, like you already said, there were changes made from the year before that made
Correct.
it a better plan. And those were, the year before, we voted on a suck plan, and then you made it better the next time?
Every-
Like, are we lagging 1 year?
yes, the state's submission is,
Isn't back from last year, so we don't, I mean, we think that we know that last year's plan is better than it was
But we
previously.
don't really know.
Right.
Mr. Zamora, when does the state require you to submit the plan?
October 31st.
There you go. That's the problem. October 31st is the deadline
He's
for
gonna
the new
submit
year.
it whether or not we vote yes or no.
Right.
Well, no, if you tell me not to, I will not
I
submit.
can't, you would not. I think Mr. Moore might be a little confused on that point.
Okay.
I'm going to take that one back. I'm not going to, if the board decides and chooses not to table it, I will table it, and I will inform the state.
But to your point, I don't want to not meet a state deadline.
Right.
When we have the ability to meet the state
amend it.
deadline and to come back and change it, you know, so, I mean, out of the sake of,
That's perfect.
I mean, because I think there's a certain element of trust that goes with this process, with this committee, with this administration, that they've heard all of this tonight. They say, okay, the board only voted for it to make the state deadline, but they want us to go back and have additional conversation, and then they'll bring it forth and tell us what the results of the additional conversation were, right?
Yeah,
So-
but 2 years ago, we voted for it, and it was terrible.
I thought,
We never
I know,
heard any
I agreed.
changes.
No, we did, we did.
We workshopped it last year.
Mr. Gamble, do you have a question in all this? Go ahead.
We have a workshop the 17th. Can this be taken care of between now and then on the workshop, we say that's going to be a board meeting and prove it there?
If you would like a 2-day workshop, our 17th
2-day.
agenda is really long as it is.
Oh,
And it could be a long meeting, it could be a very short meeting. It just depends on your questions and how.
we'll
that
just use it as a
discussion
consent agenda.
But I don't know that he's got enough time to run all these simulations and take it to the committee to discuss, and then.
think he does.
So
it would be-
I'm okay with putting it to the floor tonight, and then let you all run with the process and vet it and discuss what we've talked about.
Me too.
All right.
Superintendent. Do you have a recommendation?
I do.
I thought you might.
I recommend that we go ahead and approve the 18-19 Instructional Evaluation Plan, item 9.04, with an understanding that the team committee is going to meet. They're going to consider all of your suggestions. And then we will add this as a workshop item and bring back to you any amendments for discussion and further approval.
Brilliant, so moved.
Oh, great.
Second.
Discussion?
Can they also look at social studies and science in high school? Because those have cooperating tests. Like social studies has some AP tests that go with it, or the US, and the EOCs, something that's a little more relevant than ELA and math.
I think those are there.
Okay.
Is it also possible that we set, because we vote on things and then time moves on and we forget about them? Could we make it, like, within 60 days, it would come back to us? Is that possible?
Is that team committee schedule going to, I know you have to make the meeting and,
I will even today I spoke to Mr. Stewart that I'll be calling a team committee between now and the next few weeks. So I will have a meeting within the next couple of weeks after I crunch all the numbers.
So 60 days would be plenty of time.
Yes, 60 days should be plenty of time.
So, okay, just before, because I have to ask one more question. What about the lead committee? Because lead,
oh, leave. I'm like, leave?
No,
We don't have a
leave.
leave committee. Okay.
because we do spend, there's obviously a lot more teachers, but we have in the past had a big disparity, when we had like 13% of our administrators were not highly effective, and we had something like 13% of our teachers were highly effective. Like, that was a really bad disparity. And so I don't know if we need to include lead if we're going to have like a discussion.
I think you bring it back.
You've gotten more back in, I think you've gotten more in balance with the administrative imbalance, right?
They are, yes, I can get all those numbers ready for you for the next time we meet for the board workshop. And there are changes in leads that has counteract for that balancing. So I just have to show you the numbers.
Okay. Would that be all right? I would like that.
I was just looking at the calendars because I know we have organizational meetings and holidays and everything coming up, so 60-day time frame within the holiday calendar, we'll get it back.
Perfect.
Okay, Mr. Gamble?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
60 business days?
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Zamora.
Thank you.
All right.
Been on the hot seat for about 30 minutes.
That's right. Did a nice job. Thank you very much. All right, superintendent's report for October 8th.
Well, first, I want to thank the faculty and staff at Lost Lake and Eustis Heights for rocking their schools and being the wild card for kids. That was a great video. Thank you again, Ms. Owens and your staff for putting that together. Also, I wanted to mention to you, I think you have a copy of a letter from the Claremont City Council. Just a little bit of information. There's been a recommendation from the SAC committee at Claremont Middle School to rename the school after Aurelia Cole.
Yeah.
And are asking that we name it the Aurelia Cole Academy. So in compliance with Board Policy 8.54, naming of a school facility, we have scheduled a public hearing. It's scheduled for October 23rd. And any public input will be gathered by the SAC committee in compliance with that policy. And the letter that you received, along with several others that we've received in support of that renaming, will be gathered by the SAC committee. We will have either a workshop or board meeting where the SAC committee from Claremont Middle School will come and present the input and their recommendation to the board in regards to the renaming of that site. So that's where we are with that. Also, just want to mention that this was, last week was National Custodial Workers Recognition Day, and I just want to say thank you to all our custodial teams and the hard work that they do in recognition of that day, as well as this is National Principals Month. And so we are so grateful to have great leaders in our schools, and we appreciate the work that they do, and we celebrate them this month as well. It's also Bullying Prevention Month. We've had a lot going on, and appreciate all of the involvement from our schools and the community in our bullying prevention activities, and as well as all the men who came out for Dads Take Your Children to School Day. That was a great event. Lots of social media pictures highlighting the involvement of the male role models in our lives that are touching our kids, and we just appreciate them and thank them for making a difference for our kids. We have some letters of condolences. Our retired electrician, Jack Carden, passed away. He was in our maintenance department, and condolences were sent to his family. Condolences to Chris Landry, our Director of Student Services, and the loss of her father, Michael Borman. And William Roberts, principal of Windy Hill Middle, lost his grandmother, Shirley Lavin, and so condolences were sent to his family as well.
All right, thank you, Superintendent. Mr. Mathias?
I just want to say, leading out, that the Aurelia McKinney Cole Academy, I cannot wait to be there the day that that campus is named for her. As I've shared many times, she was assigned to me as a new board member. She was my go-to, and she was an amazing person. That for those that had the chance to be close to her, that she exuded everything that is good about Lake County and great about being an administrator for our system. The only report I really have is I did attend the Chamber Alliance and represented the board in a presentation of where we are and kind of what we're doing with our .75. It is amazing, again, to me, to watch the business community really come around our school district and do whatever we need to be supportive. And so it was just full of love, and they are very, very supportive of the initiatives that we're moving forward with. I also shared last week, we were short members, but the chair had put together our priorities, and I did share those as a draft, and they were impressed, Chair, that we were so proactive with getting it ready and are totally on board with it. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Dr. Barnes?
Yeah, I was out 2 weeks ago. I just wanted to thank the board. I got very ill, and after lots and lots of tests, it turns out I just had a really bad reaction to a virus. So, but I wanted to thank you all because I was able to focus on my family. I knew I could skip that meeting and you all would cover and there wouldn't be a problem. And I really do appreciate that. So that's really all I have, is that I've been recovering.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dodd.
Well, I enjoyed partaking in the Dads Take Your Kids to School Day events. You know, I've got a baby at home, so I even loaded her into the stroller. We parked, and as we walked up to the school, I noticed that very few cars were actually going through the car rider line. And I thought, well, this is fantastic. There are so many people participating in this and walking their kids to class. And I go to the cafeteria where we're supposed to have some donuts, and I open the door, and I say, oh my gosh, this school needs a new cafeteria. I can't even get in the door with the stroller because there are so many people. Well, even if there weren't even that many people, they still would have needed a new cafeteria. So with, we almost approved this thing without any sort of bit of fanfare. But there it was, 8.06 on tonight's consent agenda, a new cafetorium for Cypress Ridge Elementary. I think anybody who has been in Claremont, over the last couple of decades know that this thing has been a long time coming. So, and everybody says, I'm not going to hold my breath on this one, but there it is, approved by the board tonight. So, circle this day on your calendar and we'll celebrate it every year. So congratulations, Cypress Ridge, on your new cafetorium that's coming.
Thank you, Mr. Dodd.
Yep.
Mr. Gamble.
All right, I just got about 30 minutes of stuff.
We're here.
First of all, I'd just like to say, ladies, we're glad that you are able to be here tonight. We are glad that you're able to be back with us tonight. It was an all-male meeting last time, and so we did have a good time. No. All right, seriously though, Mr. Mock asked me to send out, and Ms. Challenger sent it out to the board members about our audit committee and the attendance and things like that. He wanted me to bring that to your attention, that it's hard for him to get a quorum right now, and he's been trying for a little time. So when we make our appointments, we may want to ask the people that are on there if they're able. And my other question, and I'll ask him that tomorrow, is, or when I see him, is what time of day are we trying to do it on a specific time of day that it's not maybe feasible for the individual? So we may look at flexibility on that as well, because I know sometimes that's a problem, especially with people that have regular jobs they have to leave. So, it's very serious that we be able to get that done and get the audit committee done and then the results brought back to us. This past Saturday, I attended a celebration of life for Doris Reagan, a retired teacher from Tavares High School. She taught there for 37 years, and she probably would have been there into her 40 or 50 years, but she left when she did because she had to take care of her mother, and a couple of years later her mother passed, so she didn't come back into teaching. But you could see her riding around the track for many years when she was able to on her bicycle, trying to keep herself in shape and everything, and she was very much a person that believed in flowers and beautification, and she would help the Tavares or anyone that would ask her about that. The other thing, though, is she had a lot of people there at attendance, but to me, it stands out when we have recognition there of all the years, and one of the things that stood out was she taught back when you could paddle, and they had a paddle that was probably about 3 feet long or something that had class of 1969. That she taught English for 37 years. And in the class of 69, and I looked on there because that's the year my brother graduated, and they said all the guys that were in her class, more than likely their name was on that paddle because she used it on them. And sure enough, his was on there. But she was a fantastic teacher, fantastic educator, and truly missed. But like I say, it's individuals like this, and like I said last time about Jack Carden, Jack Carden was a very good individual for the Lake County School Board, electrician and dedicated. So it's people like that that I look at, and my hat goes off to them. We have others around also that are educators that have retired here recently or whatever, and may have illnesses or something of that nature there, but they've given their all for Lake County Schools, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gamble. Along the same lines as Mr. Gamble's comment about the audit committee, we do have a reorganizational meeting coming up in November. So I would recommend that you just touch base with several people that we have appointees for on the different committees and make sure that they're still interested and that that's still something that they'd wish to continue serving on. In addition to that, Mr. Gamble mentioned that the Lake Community Action Agency board appointment is due November 17th. Before the board would be considering our appointments. So if I could get consent from you guys that Mr. Gamble stay on that committee. Is anybody opposed to that?
Sounds great.
Great. Perfect.
yes,
Thank you, Mr.
yes.
Gamble. I thought that would not be a problem at all.
Okey dokey.
I also, it came up tonight about the field trip and the chaperone. I've heard that from a couple of teachers and coaches. I don't know when the last time we looked at the field trip manual was, but from my understanding, it's pretty outdated. Not that anybody
It is,
in here
and
wants to-
Neola's working on that one right now, and and so teachers have reached out with some questions or concerns about some of the things in there. We've been able to go ahead and deal with some of that, but I know it will be coming to you shortly, and we agree it definitely needs some work.
Awesome.
May I speak real quick on that, though? Principals have spoke out, especially at the high school, because whenever they go for competition and they have to stay overnight, if they have a lay coach coaching,
Right.
then they have to have a teacher that goes, so they have to pay for that teacher to go and everything else. So it becomes very expensive for them to do that. So I'm seriously look into that as well.
We'll make note of that as well, make sure that we address that.
Awesome. The other, what?
Who was making note?
The other question, I think she made eye contact with somebody to make.
Yeah.
I did have the question, so I know that we've got a couple teacher vacancies. Everybody's well aware of that. I had a question of, are we allowed to advertise positions on Facebook, on school Facebook pages? And I don't know I didn't know the answer to that.
She's asking if we can advertise teacher vacancies on a school's
Not
Facebook
just
page.
teachers, Janet. I mean, are we able to say on a Facebook page, Humantel Elementary is looking for a really great fourth grade teacher? That is a commercial also. Anyway, can we do that? Seriously, I was asked that, and I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what that.
Believe you can use whatever methods are available to recruit teaching.
Yes, okay. I just wanted to double check that. We did,
Do we really want some of the people on Facebook?
I know. I think that was the hesitation not to come out and say,
You would not want me. That's my point.
I will say that I'm feeling kind of Mr. Gamble's heart for teachers today. My daughter's fourth grade teacher did leave for very, very appropriate reasons. It was nothing that she didn't leave inappropriately by any means, but there is a vacancy. And this morning I got to fight the battle of I don't want to go to school today, Mom. We're gonna have a sub, and I'm not going to talk about it because I'll get pretty emotional. Only because I know there's a lot of our kids in Lake County right now that are in that position. And not just Lake County, I don't mean to call us out, that we have a crisis. It is a real crisis that we don't have enough teachers. People don't want to come to teaching, and we saw some really sad Time magazine teacher covers about the state of teaching these days. And I just think that as a destination district, we should remind our teachers. So those of you that see teachers every day, just tell them how amazing they are, because we need to hear it. I spent some time in kindergarten last week. They really need to hear it. I'm sure that our high school and our middle school teachers need to hear it as well with some of the things they deal with. So we're thankful to those of you that are there every single day serving our children's needs, and just know that you make a great impression on their lives every single day, and we're super thankful. So with that being said, and no objection, we're adjourned.